Sentire Media.
Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of A New Life in Italy. I'm your host, Samantha Wilson, and today's episode is all about one very big question that I know you're asking yourself. Is this actually a smart time to buy property in Italy? Because everywhere you look right now, there's uncertainty. The U.S. economy feels very unstable. People are worried about inflation. Mortgage rates are still high. The stock market feels emotional, and the news cycle changes, every 5 minutes. And for many people dreaming about Italy, there's this feeling of, should I wait? Should you hold off then? Will prices crash? Will Italy get cheaper? Is this a mistake? Or could waiting actually cost you more? So today we're going to break this down. We're going to talk about what's happening in the U.S. economy right now, what's happening in the Italian real estate market, why foreign buyers are still buying in Italy despite the uncertainty, and the difference between emotional panic and the long-term lifestyle investing. This episode is for anyone dreaming about buying a home in Italy, whether it's a retirement home, an investment property, a future relocation plan, or simply beginning a new chapter. And more importantly, this episode is for people trying to figure out whether they should keep waiting for that perfect time or finally start making moves. And my goal with this episode is not to convince you to buy property. It's to help you think more clearly, to separate the headlines from the reality, and to understand what is actually happening on the ground here in Italy right now. So whether you are casually browsing listings at midnight or actively planning your move or even wondering if the global economy is about to implode before you make a decision, you're in the right place. Are you ready? Let's get started. I'm Samantha Wilson, and this is A New Life in Italy, a show for people who love Italy and are quietly trying to figure out what it would really take to build a life here. We talk honestly about the practical choices, the emotional shifts, and the parts of this journey that don't always get talked about, so that you can move forward feeling informed, grounded, and more confident. If you're somewhere between dreaming and doing, you are in exactly the right place. Now, let's get into today's show. Okay, my friends, here's a question. Why do so many people feel frozen right now? And I think the first thing that we need to acknowledge is this, that people are emotionally exhausted. The last few years have been economically strange, to put it mildly. And when people feel uncertain financially, property becomes emotional really quick. So right now in the U.S., affordability is still a major issue. Mortgage rates are sitting around the mid 6% range. Inventory is still tight in many markets, and buyers are really nervous. And some experts are saying that the U.S. housing market is stuck. It's not crashing, but it's not booming. It's just frozen. And honestly, that uncertainty spills over psychologically into international property buying too, because people start asking, should I keep my cash? What if there's a recession? What if prices fall? What if I regret this? And those are all very valid questions, but here's an interesting thing. Despite all of this uncertainty, foreign buyers are still buying in Italy, especially Americans. So why is that? Well, it's because for many buyers, Italy isn't purely a financial investment. It's a lifestyle investment. And that changes the psychology completely because Italy is not the U.S. in housing market. And this is something people really need to understand. The Italian property market does not behave like you might be used to in the U.S. or in Canada or the U.K. Italy is slower. It's more localized. It's less speculative, less aggressive. And there's areas in Italy where prices have barely moved for years. And there are areas where international demand keeps prices surprisingly stable. In many parts of Italy, especially these really popular lifestyle destinations like Tuscany or even up in Lake Como or Puglia or Sicily, demand from foreigners has remained very strong. And unlike in the U.S., for example, where people are often buying based on maximizing appreciation, many buyers in Italy are actually purchasing based on the quality of life, and that matters. Because someone buying a farmhouse in Umbria to spend the next 20 years of their life there is not reacting the same way that an investor who is looking to flip a condo in Miami is acting. The motivations are very different. So the question is Italy's market actually strong right now? And surprisingly, it is. It's not explosive, though. It's not going crazy, but it's relatively stable. Multiple market forecasts are actually projecting moderate growth in the Italian residential transaction and prices keeping pretty much the same through 2026. Mortgage conditions in Europe are also very different than what we saw during the peak chaos of rising rates. So the European Commission has stabilized rates more than most people expected. So the inflation projections are improving. And here's something that's really important. Italy still remains comparatively affordable relative to many US or Canadian or British markets. We have clients who sell these really small suburban homes in, let's say, San Francisco, California, or even Vancouver, BC, in Canada, and suddenly realize that they can buy a beautiful property in Italy outright with cash. And that completely changes the equation. Now, speaking of Canadians specifically, there's something very important happening that many people may not realize. Those restrictions that impacted Canadian buyers from purchasing property in Italy are expected to lift in January of 2027. Now, that might sound like a long way away, but honestly, in Italy, real estate timing, it's really not, because finding the right property in Italy is rarely fast. You're not usually buying from a polished MLS system with perfectly organized information and instant closings. In Italy, this whole process takes time. You need time to research locations, to visit, to negotiate. The due diligence takes ages here. And you need the legal process timing, time for currency planning, and sometimes simply time for the right property to finally appear. For many foreign buyers, especially those searching carefully, the full process can easily take 6 months or even longer from the start of their search to actually having the keys in hand. So if you are a Canadian, my fellow Canuck, and you've had your Italy dream sitting on hold for the past few years, this is actually the time to start preparing, researching, and getting serious about your property search now, not later. And I can hear you saying, but Samantha, is this the perfect time? And my answer is no. And honestly, there probably is no perfect time. Here's what I've noticed after years of watching people go through this process. The people who are the happiest with their decision are usually not the ones who perfectly timed the market. They're the ones who bought for the right reasons. They bought because they genuinely wanted the lifestyle. They had financial stability. They had a long-term plan, and they understood the realities of Italy. Not the fantasy Italy, but the real Italy. And that's important because some people absolutely should wait. If you are financially stretched, if the purchase would create panic, or if you've never visited the area, or if you're expecting Italy to magically solve all your problems, please just slow down. Piano, piano. Italy is wonderful, but buying property abroad is still a major life decision. So what do I think smart buyers are doing right now? Well, the smartest buyers that I'm seeing right now are doing 5 things. 5. The first one is they're buying with longer timelines, not how much will this property be worth next year, but will I still love this place in 10 years? Will I mind walking up the hills to get to my house? Will this still be my dream property 10 years from now? Number 2, they're prioritizing lifestyle infrastructure. So I'm talking about healthcare, walkability, community, airports, trains, the internet, year-round livability, not just pretty views. Number 3, they're keeping their larger cash reserves. People are being more cautious, and honestly, I think that's pretty smart. And we also need to talk honestly about mortgages with this subject because many foreigners assume they can simply finance a property in Italy the same way they do back home. But in reality, mortgages in Italy for foreigners are much more restrictive. Some buyers qualify, very, very few, mind you, and most do not. Many banks are cautious, slow, and it's very paperwork heavy, especially for non-residents or buyers with foreign income. In many cases, especially for Americans and Canadians who are purchasing second homes, buyers end up needing to purchase with cash. And that changes the entire financial conversation. It means buyers need to think differently about liquidity, currency exchange, taxes, renovation budgets, and long-term planning before making an offer. And if you're planning to move to Italy on a visa, I actually think renting first is often a pretty smart decision, especially if you're not completely certain about where you want to live long-term. Because Italy, of course, is very regional. The place that feels magical for a 2-week vacation may feel very different in rainy February when all you're dealing with is bureaucracy and transportation and language barriers. Renting first gives you time to settle, time to understand the rhythm of the area, time to decide whether this is truly where you want to plant roots before committing to a purchase. And honestly, for many people, that first rental becomes the thing that helps them buy more confidently later. Now, number 4, they're also understanding currency exchange risks. This is huge, especially for people in Canada or Australia or even the US right now. Often people underestimate this. Exchange rates alone can be massively impactful on your purchase. And on the currency side, this is something people often underestimate until it's too late. A small movement in exchange rates on a very large transfer can mean tens of thousands of dollars gained or lost, which is why many serious buyers work with foreign exchange specialists early in the process, not at the last minute before closing. I mean, sometimes you can even lock in favorable rates ahead of time, and sometimes you can strategically plan your transfers over time. Now, sometimes simply having guidance and help avoids expensive mistakes in the bank fees. And I'll put a link in the show notes for one of our specialists. If you're interested, you can speak to about your plans. Now, number 5, they are focusing on regions. The buyers themselves are focusing on regions with long-term demand, not just abandoned villages with one-year homes and no services. This is not a good investment, nor is it a good long-term lifestyle plan. There's a very big difference between a cheap property and a valuable property. Very, very big. Now, the bigger question nobody talks about, and I think the real question underneath all of this is not, is this the perfect economic time to buy in Italy? I actually think the deeper question people are really asking is, can I trust myself to make a big life decision during these uncertain times? Because uncertainty has become the new norm. And at some point, if Italy is truly your dream, you have to decide whether you are building a life or waiting endlessly for the perfect conditions that may never come. So as we wrap up today's episode, here's what I really want you to remember. The Italian property market is not collapsing. The sky isn't falling. And despite global uncertainty, buyers are still buying because Italy offers something that many people feel they are missing right now. And that's a different way of living, a slower pace, more connection, a lifestyle that feels human again. But buying property in Italy should never be impulsive. So do your research. Visit different seasons, understand the bureaucracy and the taxes, understand your renovation costs, and the emotional reality of living abroad. And most importantly, buy because the life makes sense for you. Not because you're panicking or because someone on social media or you ran into a gorgeous property online. And not because someone told you that the property prices are about to double in Italy. Because that's not necessarily true. Buy because it's time for you. Now, if this episode helped you think more clearly about your own Italy plans, please share it with someone else who's dreaming about making the move. And if you're actively considering buying in Italy, you can also visit our website at Smart Move Italy to learn how we can help foreign buyers navigate the process safely and realistically. And don't forget to download our app, Smart Move Italy Property. It's a brand new property app, and you can find it on your Apple Store and Google Play. It's time for listener questions. Just like the old radio call-in shows, my team has picked 3 listener questions, all left on our voicemail. I have no idea what these questions are, but I haven't been stumped yet. Are you ready? Let's get started. All right, question time. Question number 1. Can Americans and Canadians or other foreigners still get mortgages in Italy in 2026? And the answer is no. Well, it's not completely no. I know that's a little harsh. But in most cases, no. It's not possible for foreigners to get a mortgage in Italy. And that is simply because there are a lot of rules around the types of income that you need to have. Also, if you're lucky to get a mortgage, you will not be able to mortgage more than 40 or 50% of the purchase price. So you also need to plan to have at least 50% cash down payment. But the problem with mortgages isn't just in the banks not approving. By the way, you'll need to have a very stable, long-term, reliable job. If you're self-employed in your home country, forget it. It's never going to happen. You need to have an actual paycheck and something that's quite reliable. And it also takes a very long time. It could take 3 or 4 months before you even get a decision on whether or not you're going to get the mortgage. And they don't do pre-approvals for foreigners. So what happens is you have to go on your property purchase hunt, look for a property, make an offer subject to approval of a mortgage. That owner has to accept that, knowing that they're going to wait 3 or 4 months before you even know if you're going to get a mortgage, and likely not get one. So your negotiating power is almost zero. And most of the time, owners will not accept this kind of an offer. So the better decision is that find a way to finance the purchase in your home country. Refinance your home, get a loan, do whatever you have to do to get the cash in order to purchase directly in Italy. Question number 2, is it smarter to rent first before buying in Italy? I get this question a lot, and as I said in this episode, I do think it's a great idea to rent first. The only time I would suggest for somebody to buy first in Italy, unless you've already purchased something, if you're thinking of buying for a visa or renting for your visa, the only time I would suggest buying is if you know exactly where you want to be, because you've already made inroads into that community. You've been going there for years. You really know what you want and where you want it. Then I say absolutely buy, because you have more options, especially if you're coming here with a bunch of animals or pets, which can make renting even more difficult, and your intention truly is to stay long-term, then absolutely buy. Otherwise, renting is a great way to get started. And then you're here and you're on the ground and you can start to discover other areas and properties that come up quite quickly. Question number 3, is buying property in Italy safer than buying in the US right now? Well, I'm not sure what you mean by safer, but I'll tell you from an investment point of view, the best way to look at purchasing property in Italy is it's a long game. It's not something that you're going to buy something and then think it's going to appreciate within the couple of years and then resell it. First of all, it takes time to sell property in Italy, so often things don't sell overnight, so you'll be sitting on it for a while. And most importantly, when people buy in Italy, especially when foreigners buy in Italy, often they look for something that they're going to use for their home base. And the idea is to settle down, set up your roots, and live there and live in your home. And you might see when you're looking at listings online that you'll see some properties that have been for sale for years and years, and the prices vary and change. And that's not often a foreigner who's trying to sell their property. That is usually an Italian with a large family or something wrong with the property that is just not getting the pricing right, or people can't make decisions or can't decide on what they want to do or how they want to sell the property. It's not usually because the property is really bad. It's usually because there's other factors why that property is not selling. So properties do sell in Italy, although I tell you it's a long game. It does take time. Properties do sell. Good properties do sell relatively quickly. And by that, I mean 3, 4, 5, 6 months, not usually overnight. But the idea of it being safer is hard to say yes or no, because in any real estate market, it depends on the price that you buy, the location, earthquakes, all kinds of other factors that might come into play. So I think I would rather explain this to say it's safer for you to buy in an area that you're sure you want to live in, because you'll have that house for a long time. It's safer to buy when you intend to enjoy it in a well thought out way, whether it's for your family vacations a couple times a year or for your home. It's safer when you take the time to understand that buying is a lifestyle choice in Italy, not for investment purposes. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you of something. You don't need all of the answers right now. You just need the right questions and the space to think clearly. If this episode helped you feel more grounded or less alone, that's exactly why the show exists. You can find all of the links and the resources that I mentioned in today's episode in the show notes. And if you want to go deeper, head over to smartmoveitaly.com for more ways that we can help you make your move to Italy a whole lot easier. And if you're enjoying the show, subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with someone that is also dreaming about Italy helps more than you know. Thanks again for spending time with me. I will see you next week. Ciao for now.
Sentire Media.
Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.